So I get up and I slip into some boots and grab my shotgun and fumble around, get a shell and put in it. And I hide in the shadows. And this vehicle pulls up to the gate, which is about 100 yards away. And then the lights go out. So I'm standing there in the shadows, in my underwear, in my boots, with my shotgun, and wondering what's about to happen.
This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Mossy Oak.
Welcome, everybody, to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. I'm Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury.
And we're powered by your hat.
DeerCast.
DeerCast.
That's right. So
it's a cool hat.
Hey, thanks. It's I'm always trying to find like new hats or shirts or hoodies or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was going through this process of this Richardson 112, which is like the hat that everybody says fits the best, right? So I put a story up on Instagram to see which one people like, because I had two different designs, the offset and the front. Mm-hmm. I'm in a real conundrum because Mark says he likes the front. I like the front, but pretty overwhelmingly, most people like the offset. So
I'm in offset camp.
I could just get what I want, which I actually have it because I got the sample.
Yeah, so go with the offset then.
Yeah.
We're covered.
So
get one for Mark and everyone's happy.
Offset it is.
This is episode 211.
Don't shard us, man. We've been doing this a long time. Don't get rid of a whole 100 episodes.
We need all the help that we can get.
Actually start lying about it. It's number 311.
So we've got Bobby Cole on from Mossy Oak. He's the president of Mossy Oak BioLogic.
We call him Bobby Logic. He's the man.
He's the dude, and he's a novelist, and he's a Renaissance man.
That's right. Let's just have him on because I want to talk about that right there.
Why don't we do that?
All right. Bobby Cole, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm just laughing at you guys over there trying to decide about hat styles. That worries
We're slaves
me,
to fashion.
That's right. Look at us. Bobby, you're one of my favorite guys in the entire world, not just the industry, but the world, because no matter what we've ever asked from you, whether it was dream season judging or biologic, last bite segments or whatever it may be, Bobby's always quick to jump and say, yep, I'll do whatever you need to do. He always drives up from down and where you at? Mississippi,
yeah.
And he drives up here, the 8-hour drive or whatever it is, and never hesitates to say, I'm in. That's our kind of guy. Nice as can be.
Even to you.
And that says a lot.
He's doing something.
Well, y'all always feed me well.
No, donuts, maybe a granola bar.
Well, no, I'm thinking about those steaks. If there's several little restaurants y'all always take us to that are just outstanding.
That's right, man. Well, we got to take care of you because we're not paying you. So at the very least,
feed the man.
At least feed you something good.
So the working title for the show is planting a successful season. So we know people are thinking now about food plots and what you do over the summertime is going to impact your fall and how that looks and your success rate. So there's no one else that we'd rather have on than Bobby to talk about that.
That's right. And I'm, as much as we're going to dive into that, like I like just shooting the breeze with Bobby. Like that's the part I was looking forward to having him on. Like you said, he's a novelist. Like how many books are you up to now? 5?
Yeah, it's 5. Yeah.
And every one of them is as good as the next or better. I mean, that's the first one, the dummy line. And when I'm telling you, like I read that thing in 2 days, like it's every one of these books, you just can't put them down. Once you dive into them, they're thrillers, all of them.
I started in on this one last night.
Yeah. So Tim really, he knew you wrote these novels, but he didn't know, he hadn't had a chance to read any of them yet.
I heard there were no pictures in it. So that kind of was an obstacle for me.
So I got a stack here. So I said, hey, take the dummy line, at least read a chapter or two. I promise you, once you dive into it, you're going to get like sucked into this thing. And it's one of those things where they're all kind of hunting. Well, not all totally hunting related, but the first one definitely is. And you get sucked in and it's like, man, I could picture this and what's happening here. And when I read it, I just think of Bobby as the main, the main guy, Jake. I just think of Bobby. I don't know why, but I just, that also makes it fun for me to read these things.
You know the author, you know the mind that it came out of.
So just dive into that a little bit. Like, why did you get into this? What was the passion, or what kind of spurred writing the first one?
Yeah, well, I've always enjoyed reading, and ever since I was little, kind of started off with Where the Red Fern Grows, and those kind of books as a kid, but just kept growing up reading, and then one night I was actually turkey hunting at this property that this kind of is referenced in that story, the dummy line, and I had Jessie with me, and she was, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years old. And we were staying in this old dilapidated camper that I had. I mean, it was really rough. And during the middle of the night, I had a terrible nightmare. The chapter 6 in that story that you're about to read, Tim, I dreamed it. So I got up, I woke up, and I was just wringing wet with sweat. My heart was racing. And I can remember touching her sleeping bag, and she was asleep there, and everything was fine. And I realized I'd had a nightmare. So I opened up the door to the camper, and I sat outside and was drinking a Coke and just thinking about how realistic that was. And in the dream, somebody drove up to the camp, some redneck thugs, to rob the camp. There's a lot of valuable stuff usually at a hunting camp that can be sold, pawned, or whatever. And so I dreamed that somebody drove up to the camp that night. And so while I'm sitting there, and I'm actually kind of sitting in my boxers, just sitting on the step, I start hearing the gravel pop, and I can see headlights coming through the woods. And this is at 1:00 at night of somebody driving down the road coming to the camp for real. So I'm thinking, this is deja vu. The dream was
a premonition.
Yes. So I get up, and I slip into some boots and grab my shotgun and fumble around, get a shell and put in it, and I hide in the shadows. And this vehicle pulls up to the gate, which is about 100 yards away, and then the lights go out. So I'm standing there in the shadows, in my underwear, in my boots, with my shotgun, and wondering what's about to happen. And you can imagine just everything that's going through your mind, So after about 15 minutes, nobody comes down the road. So I decided I'm going to sneak up to the gate and see what's going on. And when I get up to the gate, the windows are all fogged up, and there's some music like Matt likes to listen to, kind of thumping in the background. And I realize what's going on. And, I thank goodness they didn't turn on their lights, because that probably would have scared them to death with me standing there with a shotgun. But
$200, $200.
And I just remember thinking how, this could really happen. A guy could get robbed at the camp. And that gave the next day, I just started writing the story. So that's how it started.
Isn't that crazy?
What would be interesting if the young people that were in the car ever knew that they kicked off a series of novels because of their little encounter.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're. I'm just thankful they didn't flip on their lights. It probably would have scared all of us.
But I'm telling you, you pick up this book, and Bobby, where is it available? Because it's not just a hard copy. You can get it online, right? Like Amazon Prime and stuff like that.
Yeah, Amazon's probably the best place to get it. And they've got audio versions and electronic versions, and it's not very expensive at all.
And I'm telling you, you pick it up and you just cannot put it down. So summer's coming. If anybody's got their spouse is making them take a vacation somewhere, and you're going to be like, I'm bored as hell. Yeah. I'm telling you, take this book, you'll read it, buy 2 of them, because you're going to go through it. It's there. Every one is just as good. And you're kind of following along. How many I don't remember exactly, because it's been a few years, but are all 5 of them around around Jake, or just the first few? And then you kind of branch off into other characters from some of those. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, there's 3 with Jake.
Yeah.
And so that's the dummy line, Moon Underfoot, and Old Money. And then the Rented Mule and Silent Approach are standalone stories.
So tell us about why you call it the dummy line, because I found that interesting as well.
Well, on this particular property, it's several thousand acres, and there's this long, straight road that goes through it. I mean, it's straight as it can be. and it goes across this property and properties on either end. And it was always called the dummy line. And it was just for years of hunting there. I never really knew what it was, but literally from Maine to Texas, all over, back in the turn of the century when they were logging areas, real remote areas, they would build temporary train lines. So it might be they would set up a railroad that would go from one end of a property to a loading deck. And it might be several miles long. And then when they finished logging the area, that was the most efficient way to get the logs out. And it was called a dummy line because it didn't go anywhere. And then when they finished, they would take up the tracks and they would leave this long bed that was like a road there. And there's properties, that were all over the country with dummy lines on them. And I didn't realize this until I wrote the story, and people started emailing me and contacting me saying, hey, we have a dummy line here. And here's a lady sent me a sign that says, I don't know if I can show it up there. It says,
yeah.
I think she stole it somewhere. I don't know for sure.
Stole it from
sure, Bobby.
There's a lot of them.
That's cool, man.
I hate to get confrontational, especially this early in a show. I found one inaccuracy in the book. Early on, it says, Matt, you're the best.
He's got my copy.
So just...
I didn't say what he's the best at.
Well, good point.
Could be the best at the soundboard.
Nice job.
See?
Well, we've got some mixed shout outs today from our audience.
So Bobby, we always do a couple shout outs at the front end. And so Bobby's got his own podcast. Before we jump into the shout outs, tell the people real quick about your podcast.
Yeah, well, it's not mine. It's the Gamekeepers.
It's yours.
Podcast. And so we try to have one every week. We're just following it. You guys have done such a great job, and it's a great vehicle for us to explain how to do different things, of managing properties and whatnot. So that's kind of what ours is about. But with Gamekeepers, we're about deer, ducks, turkeys, upland birds, managing a pond. So we're pretty broad. So the podcast gives us a platform to be able to 1 week talk about managing a pond and 1 week talk about food plots, protein feed. This is very versatile.
But does it have any fart sounds?
We don't have any of that yet. No,
that's where we're going to be.
You have something to learn yet.
Yeah. You got some big shoes to fill, Bobby. So he's going to go back to a workshop meeting. He's like, guys, I really think we need more farts on this show. The pond stuff is great, but we need more farts.
That's right. Austin.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, we're going to dance around, talking about food plots here, but you want the good info.
Like a real show.
A real show about it.
Check them out.
Probably check out Gamekeepers.
They know what they're doing.
All right. So shout out number 1, Eric Tyndall on DeerCast, talking about the Dale Beatty show, says, the best way to end racism, stop talking about it. Morgan Freeman.
He's calling you Morgan Freeman.
Any questions of race on this page is completely unacceptable. Wildlife doesn't care what your race is, so why is it a topic on a hunting site? So it sounds like Eric's got an axe to grind.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is that we agree with Eric. Like, we don't think race has anything to do with hunting, and that was the conclusion of the show. We're two white guys. We're saying that it's interesting to hear that come from Dale, who is black.
My guess is Eric may not have actually listened or watched the podcast. He just saw your headline on it and just decided,
now it's my headline.
Gonna put it. Well, you're right. So I don't. So my guess is maybe you didn't watch the whole thing.
I'm guessing so too. That's what our next shout out surmises also. This is Clint Pride, which is an awesome name, from YouTube. He says race doesn't matter to them either. And he's talking about you and I. Did you watch it? Trying to expand the industry so hunting doesn't die out altogether. They also talked about kids and women. We need more hunters.
Which was the point of the podcast. It's like, hey,
thank you for listening, Clint.
Yeah. It's like, hey, what do we need to do to continue to grow numbers, or to actually start growing numbers, because they're in a rapid decline? And race is one big element. We always talk about women and children joining the outdoors. You don't talk much about other races. I'm not just talking about African Americans. It's any other race. Like, there's plenty of other, fish in this pond. So that was kind of the point, that maybe Eric may have missed. We need more people and maybe invite someone.
Yeah, no doubt. And it sounds different when different people say it from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, but we're all on the same page. That's the important part. That was the conclusion.
All right. So, Bobby.
All right. Summer food plots.
That's right. Well, so right now, a lot of people in the Midwest, I'm sure we're not alone here, but a lot of people are spraying food plots or spraying potential food plots, or, I know that many people just planted their corn or their beans, or a lot of rain came through in the last couple of weeks. So people all over the country are scrambling to get in their food plots before the rain, because as you know, usually once May ends, it seems like the rain just stops until about September. Yeah. And so, I think everybody kind of knows those basic things, but what's maybe something that isn't as talked about that people should really be preparing for right now, or doing right now, and getting ahead for our fall food plots?
Well, that's a good point, Matt. So, it's very important to get your soil in the best health that it can be. It's really such an important factor that oftentimes people overlook that. So at this time of year, I would highly encourage guys to pull a soil sample. And we've got a little lab that you can use so many different places, but it's normally less than $10 to send in your dirt and have it analyzed. And so like at plantbiologic.com, you can click on the soil test, and then you can write on it, hey, I'm going to plant soybeans, or I'm going to plant clover. And then the soil test will come back to you and say, you need to add this much fertilizer to grow the clover. And it'll give you 3 different options of fertilizer that'll work. And it'll also tell you your pH. And pH is real important. And it'll tell you how much lime you need. And lime takes months to dissolve, or for the soil to actually digest it. So now's the time to be liming your food plot, especially since if it's dry, you can get in there with a lime buggy or a small lime cart, or you can do it by hand. I've recently, just in the last week, done one with just a little push spreader, just because it's only option I had at the time. But now's the time to be doing the soil test. Now's the time to be applying lime and getting your dirt in the shape that it needs to be in for the fall.
Bobby, does it ever make sense to invert that process? Because you're talking about figuring out what you want to plant, and then do the soil test, and then figure out what you need to do to condition the soil to get it favorable for what you're going to plant. But is there ever a scenario where someone does a soil test, they get the results, then should figure out what they should plant? Well,
most people kind of have a general idea of what they want to plant. So then that soil test can it helps you say, well, this is what you need to grow that crop. Mm-hmm. But I guess in some cases it might come back and you've got, like, say, a really, really high soil pH, and that might, lead you to say, well, I can't plant, some of these other crops. Maybe I'm going to just plant alfalfa or sandpoint or something that likes a real high pH. But that's really kind of, Tim, that doesn't happen very often, I don't think.
I always ask one bad question every show, so that was it. So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Be prepared for more. So what could you over-lime? Can you over-fertilize? Can you overdo those things?
Yeah, you certainly can. And so most soils, Matt, like if you've got some property that you hunt there around St. Louis. And so if you went into a new area and dished it up and pulled a soil sample and sent it in, it's probably going to be a little acidic. It's probably going to need some lime. Just most places do. But you could actually put too much lime on there, and then it would push it over 7. And in a perfect world, you want that pH to be between 6.5 and 7, 7 being neutral. And when it's less than 6.5 to 7, it makes it more difficult for the soil to make the nutrients readily available to the plant. So it binds them up. But if you go over 7, it can bind up a whole different set of minerals. So it's really important to follow the instructions on the soil test.
Does that affect not only growth of the whatever you plant, but does it affect the palatability for the whitetail?
It could. Yeah, it certainly can. We see when that that pH is right in that look. And Matt, I've been watching you through the years. You've gotten a lot better. I remember when you first started, food plots were, it's not easy. You got to put it to the work.
You know, I got better. I got better help because I still suck at it.
Pre-scotch.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Your dad and Mark are two of the best.
Yeah.
And it's because I would promise you they're pulling soil tests and they're going by what it recommends. They've got somebody that they're going to the farm store and showing it to them, and somebody's saying, okay, here's exactly what you need to do. And when you follow those instructions, it just makes everything so much better. And when the plot's fertilized correctly and that pH is right, and the way all of our blends are designed, they're highly palatable, and you just see it just perform. And all of a sudden, you've got this green, glowing food plot in the fall, winter woods, and it's just attracting everything there. And they just eat it down to dirt and turds. And you're nourishing your deer herd, and you're attracting deer from the neighbors. And all these does are showing up, and they're dragging bucks you've never seen before. It really works fantastic.
I think Tim and I both picked up on one saying there, and I want to dive into the green food plot in a second, but I've never heard it called dirt and turds before.
I've never heard either. I'm glad you called that out.
Sounds like something that me and my son would giggle about a lot. Or something he would call us his sister. You're dirt and turds.
I'm going to use that.
But no, you're 100% right, because, even like last year was a perfect example that I could visually see with my own eyes. The river farm that we had, the first 2 years was flooded. We planted it and then flood. Well, last year it didn't flood. We planted it, did the soil samples, and, made sure it was all, correct. Mm-hmm. And it was unbelievable the tonnage that it produced. And it was just a sea of green.
Looked good.
And it pulled in every buck that was in the area. I mean, it was in the world. And it was incredible. Our hunts, we basically abandoned the lease last year because the food plots made the river farm so palatable and so attractive that it was a fun season.
Sure.
Like, it was really a game changer for us. So it's like, okay, man, if we can,
there's something to this,
which it had fantastic soil down there in the Mississippi River bottom. Yep. Yeah. But in general, it was really, really cool to see because there was no other food for them anywhere close. Sure. Not a lot. Neighbors had a little bit, but in general, I had all green. Neighbors had grain.
That's perfect.
And it was pretty amazing the footage that we got out of last year, and a couple good kills, and it was just a fun season. And the biologic, or of planting a food plot, made all the difference for us.
Yeah, and so I'm just. The thing about a food plot, you need to have a large enough area that they just don't eat it down. And don't giggle when I say this, Matt, but down to dirt. You want to have something left, and that usually takes at least an acre or larger. A 2 or 3 acre plot is it's just so much better. But when you can do that, and you're back at the studio working 3 or 4 days, and that plot's out there, it's working for you. It's attracting deer, and it's nourishing them, and they get used to coming there, and they'll come earlier and earlier as the weather starts getting colder and worse. They just know that that's a place that they go to feed. And then if you only go in there and hunt when you've got that wind just right and everything is just perfect, and you don't ever spook them, it just becomes a destination for them. And then to add to that, one of the things that we like to do are these spring and summer food plots, like planting soybeans and/or spring protein peas or clover, depending on where you are in the spring. But then those mama deer are training their babies to go to that area to feed all summer long. And it just makes an impression on them. And then you'll turn that back into a fall winter food plot that they just continue to use. So basically, you're just training those deer on your farm that this is where we go to feed. And you just limit that pressure that you put on them. And it just becomes a place where you can pop in there and just see deer. See them in the mornings, actually.
Yeah.
See them in the middle of the day. It works.
I found that they were bedding closer and closer to it, and they just pop out. Like, that was a thing. You never kind of knew when it was tough to get back to some of the food plots because you were walking through, they'd be right off the edges, and you have to really be slow, quiet, and try to be as early as possible.
Well, that hunt where Scott killed, I mean, you guys were in the stand for 15 minutes,
maybe,
tops, and
it happened quick.
Wasn't far. Yeah. Bobby, I'm wondering about soil tests. If you do one, let's say you do one this year, do you have to do one in the next 3? Like how much can the soil change year to year? What's a good pace for that?
Yeah. So, as a rule of thumb, you can get about 3. One soil test would kind of guide you for a couple of years, but Tim, they're $8. So you might as well,
Bobby just called you a tight ass.
Yeah. So they're not real expensive, and you can just see exactly what it is you need to do and add it to, exactly that much. It's actually the cheapest part of the whole equation. Actually, the seed and the soil test are the cheapest part of the whole equation. Fertilizer is pretty expensive, and then your time and securing a tractor to go do all that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I'd like to point out, though, that we see guys make this mistake all the time is they'll plant a food plot and put a shooting house on it, and then that Saturday comes around, it doesn't matter which direction the wind's blowing out of, they're going to go hunt that food plot. And you just can't do that every Saturday. You're going to just blow it out. You've got to be smart about it. And if your deer are coming from a certain direction, you got to know about that. And I think you guys have got some partners that can help you with some of that scent problem.
If only there was an app to tell you when to go.
Yeah, that's right. And the DeerCast is great at that. But I'm just trying to caution guys that just because you've got this great food plot, you're actually better off to not hunt the less amount of time that you actually spend there, the better it's going to be.
That's 100%. And that's what we've started seeing just on the properties where I hunt. It's like, okay, what helped me out the most was having a cell cam finally last year. And it's like, oh man, it was kind of telling the story for me, whereas we'd go and you'd have a lot of sits that nothing happened. And even with great conditions or good wind or whatever, but once we get the cell cameras, we figured out, I say nothing, you'd see does or young bucks or whatever, but not the hit lister. And it's like, oh, he's not around yet. And then as soon as he showed up, it's like, okay, now I should start hunting him, which made a big difference last year in not only just efficiency of your time, but the pressure you're putting on your piece.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think, Bobby, what you're hitting on is the psychological aspect. Last year was the first year I actually had food plots, and I just wanted to see deer on I didn't care what they were. I just wanted the gratification of seeing deer on those food plots feeding. It's just cool to see that, like, hey, it's working. They're coming to something that I
did this.
Built. Yeah. I helped. And even when the situations aren't right for being there, it was kind of a crutch.
Yeah.
Well, think about this, Tim. Like one of our products, like Final Forage or Maximum, any of those that have a lot of those biologic brassicas in them, you can, if it's well fertilized, you get it with pH right. I mean, think about looking at some of the stuff that Terry and Mark have grown. You've seen those great big plants. We're looking at growing 8 to 10 tons of forage per acre. My old dog just woke up.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, you got a visitor.
So 8 to 10 tons of forage per acre. So if you've got several acres of food plots that are performing at a high level, you're growing a lot of groceries that you can feed your deer herd, and it will be attractive to pull in deer from your neighbors as well. So, I mean, if you think about going and buying 10 tons of feed, that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, that's right. Bobby, a lot of guys, including myself, hunt more timber and are kind of limited on, like, we don't have big fields to put in plots. Are there solutions for guys like us?
Yeah, and there is. And, we've got a product called Hotspot that you can actually it's kind of designed for if you don't have a big spot or you've got maybe there's an opening, maybe a tree has fallen in the canopy. There's allowing a little sunlight to get through, that you can go in there in like late September, October, when the leaves have started falling, And Tim, you could take a rake and rake them back. You could take a blower and blow the leaves back, but just try to expose some bare soil. And this hot spot, you can just toss it out on top of the ground and put a little fertilizer on top of it. That's important. And so you can kind of create you a little hot spot that nobody else knows about down in your timber. But you've kind of got to wait till those leaves start coming off the tree so that sunshine can come down to it.
Sure.
And the plants are designed to be planted later in the year. You guys want to plant. I know, Matt, y'all are planting y'all's food plots in August.
Yeah.
But this particular product I'm talking about, you would probably want to wait till late September to put it out.
And how long would it take then for that to germinate and be?
Oh, just really fast. Once it's got a rain on it, if it rained, if you planted it on a Saturday and it rained on Sunday, it would have a green 5 o'clock shadow across it the next Saturday.
No dirts and turds.
Another option, my buddy of mine just did this, Logan. He bought a new piece of property, a home site. This is where he lives. And on it, it's like 7 acres. Yeah. And so he cleared out, it was just a grown up, it's in the timber, but it was a real grown up area. And he busted his butt and cleared it out and, chainsaws and just a lot of saplings and stuff like that in there. And he planted clover this spring. And he sent me a picture. He hadn't gone in there for a month or so. And he's like, man, I'm just dying to see it. And I kept telling him to wait and wait and wait. And then we got all that rain. I said, go in there. I guarantee you that blue. He showed me a picture. It was freaking amazing. And this is just all stuff he did by hand. Just blood, sweat, and tears getting it in there. And he carved out a little, maybe it's a 1/4 acre, but he's already seeing tons of tracks, tons of turds.
That's what I want.
Turkey feather, it's the point of what he wanted there. Yeah. And now he's going to have a little spot. I told him, I said, your biggest problem is since it's next to your house, close to your house, you're going to have to really work to stay out of that thing, because you could really, just be there all the time because it's right out your back door. But it was amazing. I was really impressed what he built out of nothing there.
Yeah. And then that'll just keep coming back year after year. Bobby, the hot spot, will that come back or is that kind of a 1 year?
No, that's an annual, Tim. You'll have to plant it every year. But that's kind of, so, everything, there's annuals and there's perennials, and an annual knows it's only got a short life. So it tries to produce as much forage as it can in a short window of time. And that's a good thing. That's what we want. And clovers are perennials and they're slower growing. Clover sleeps and then it leaps, but it might last 4, 5, 6 years. But in the scenario that we just described, that hot spot in the woods. And I'll also mention that if you can, like Matt's friend was doing, if you can take a chainsaw and just open up, maybe let a few trees fall so that the more sunshine can get down into that little area, the better it will be.
Bobby, this also the time of year where guys are starting to cut their clover, starting to mow.
Yeah.
How high do you need to leave your deck? Basically, do you want to cut the tops off or are you just trying to cut above the tops and get the weeds cut? Like what's the best principle there?
Yeah. You want to kind of cut the top off the clover. So when the clover, and it's, the rule of thumb is when you think 75% of the plants are blooming, you'll see a lot of blooms out there. So you'll want to go and just kind of mow those tops off. And so you'll leave your clover at about 10 inches tall, depending on how tall yours is, maybe a foot tall, maybe 8 inches tall, but you're just mowing that top off of it. So when the plants go into producing, when they're flowering, they've kind of transitioned into seed production and they aren't as palatable at that point. And so you've got weeds trying to compete. And if you'll go in there and mow it, it'll help with those weeds and it'll kind of make the plants be more kind of forage, go back to forage production rather than seed production because they're going to come back from their roots.
So if you only have, because I know a lot of guys, maybe they got a 0-turn mower or something like that, and they don't have an actual tractor brush hog set up, or even a pull behind, one of those pull behind motors or mowers that go behind your side by side. I don't know that you can get 10 inches tall on some of that stuff. Can you go too short? Like what would be like your, oh crap, I'm too short range? It's 4 inches, 6 inches or?
Yeah, you could scalp it if you're not careful. And also, when to mow is important. If you're like right now where we are in Mississippi, it's when you pull up the weather, it's just says sunshine and 90 degrees for the next 7 days. So it would not be a great time to mow it because it's gonna be kind of stressing. So, but if you knew there was some rain in the next few days that could kind of help it rebound, you could mow ahead of that rain. So, but yeah, you don't want to scalp it down, Matt. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have the right equipment, you'd be better off to not do anything than go scalp.
Okay.
And in that scenario that you just described, there's chemicals that a guy can buy that, so clover is a broadleaf in a legume, and you can buy chemicals that you could. Helena Chemical is a great company to go to ask for advice, but you tell them, hey, I've got clover. I've planted some biologic, non-typical white ladino clover. I've got grass in it, and they'll sell you a product. I always mispronounce it, but I think it's called clethodim.
Yeah.
You'll spray it with a little surfactant. And I think it's about 16 ounces to an acre, but don't quote me on that. But so that'll kill the grass that's growing up in it. And then they have another product that you could spray that if you've got broadleaf weeds. So a guy can buy a backpack sprayer and some chemicals, and he can control a lot of the weeds that he might have.
Is there a best time of day to mow?
Any kind of sprayer.
Sure. Bobby, is there a best time of day to mow if you got clover and you got to go out and cut it?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Stump the Bobby.
I don't know that it matters, to be honest with you.
I always ask one good question, too, during a show.
That wasn't it.
Oh, man. I'll keep trying.
So I don't know that matters, but if you're spraying, that probably matters if it's windy or, you know what I mean? Like you could probably do a little damage to the farmer's crops there if you're not careful.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do it on a windy day, and you probably wouldn't want to do it first thing when the dew is still on the plants. So probably middle of the day there. But then you're absolutely right about watching the wind because you can get some drift going.
Yeah.
Our question of the day is right up Bobby's alley.
Oh, is it? All right, well, then, let's get into it. The question of the day is probably brought to you by Plano Cases. Protect your passion with Plano.
Hi, Matt and Tim. My question is, we got this hunting land that used to be a junkyard. I want to put a food plot in it, but I do not know what I have to do with the ground to make sure that the chemicals from the cars are not going to disturb our food plot.
That's an interesting scenario. So a piece of property that was formerly a junkyard with old cars on it, now it's his hunting ground. How does he even begin to condition the soil?
Yikes.
Because who knows what's leached into it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would plow it and disc it up and soil test it and just see. But I would imagine a lot of that stuff, I guess you're dealing with gas and oil and maybe antifreeze, that kind. I just don't know how much would be there. But I think he's just going to roll up his sleeves and try it and see. He probably doesn't want to get any governmental agencies involved in that.
Make it a super fun site.
Yeah, just wants to do it himself. And nature is a wonderful healer, and it has a way of taking care of itself. So I would like to think that whatever damage may have been done, that nature has a way of healing itself, and it might surprise him how good it'll actually be.
Probably important to know Bobby's range. He just uttered the phrase, nature is a wonderful healer. Also, dirt and turds. You got range, brother.
He's a novelist.
Yeah. Well, Dean, I hope that helps you out, man. Good luck hunting the former junkyard.
Yeah. I mean, that's I'd like to see the progress report on that, though. I mean, that would be a really cool story. He obviously would have a lot of work ahead of him to clean it up, but who's to say he can't create an awesome little mecca there?
Yeah. The junkyard buck.
Junkyard dog.
Kill a buck like that. It's now time for the wildlife word segment. So hold on to your hats, everybody. It's brought to you by Tracker Off-Road, made with the know-how of American workers, built for those who love the outdoors. Get all your summer prep work done with the power and dependability of Tracker Off-Road. Okay, we got a hypothetical this week. Let's say a doe has triplets. What's the maximum number of fathers that could have sired that batch of fawns? A, 1 buck. B, 2 bucks, C, 3 bucks, or D, really none of our business, girl likes to get around.
$200 is $200.
Can't argue with that. How many daddies could there be in a batch of triplets?
You mean like his cadangle don't work?
They did. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, I do know that with twins, they can have separate fathers, but I've never heard about triplets and separate fathers. But I'm thinking if twins can have separate fathers, that triplets could as well.
That's what she said.
So Bobby's going with C, 3. Matt graciously lets the guests go first always.
I don't know. I'm gonna go with 2.
Okay. Well, Bobby is the winner here.
Ding ding.
It is 3. Yeah, there's been research that shows that. In fact, I read of a rare case where a doe potentially had 6 fawns, and they could all have different daddies.
Jeez.
You and my dad decided that your mom was really hot.
It's a jungle out there, man.
Y'all got a bunch of good sound effects.
Yeah.
It's the only reason people tune in. That's all we got.
Once we started with the soundboards, we actually had like at least 5 or 6 more listeners start listening to the podcast.
Yeah, it's actually entertaining now.
The word's out.
Imagine that.
Oh yeah, wow, that's good.
Bobby, before we leave, like I just want to reminisce a little bit, like of all the years that you were involved with, whether it was Wildlife Obsession or Dream Season, or, you've been helping us out for a long time. What was a favorite memory or something, was there an experience or a story that kind of comes to mind? What was one of the most favorite things, good or bad, that you can recall from those years?
Well, Matt, there's so many memories. When we were doing the Dream Season, it seemed like that went on for 10 years, and it seemed like y'all had 9 or 10 different producers of that show. It would just wear somebody out and they would just snap and quit. And
you are correct.
But there was one year, and the wrestler from Iowa,
Tim Sylvia.
I can't think of Tim's last name.
Sylvia,
yes. So the first time I went in there and sat, he was so big and he had tattoos everywhere and these big sideburns. And I just thought he was going to be the toughest, meanest, But after 5 minutes, he was the nicest guy. I've enjoyed him so much. And since then, I would see him at SHOT Shows, and we've stayed in touch and talked. I was just blown away by it. He was not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah, he's a big teddy bear, actually. He's got a show of his own called Hit Squad Outdoors, I think. And we stay in touch as well. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. That being said, I've also seen him put several people to sleep at trade shows who asked for him to do that, which I never understood. And it takes like seconds.
Dang.
They put him in a chokehold and they'd go numb, and he'd kind of gently put their body on the ground,
take their wallet and walk away.
No, I'm not gonna, he just got married, so I'm not gonna say what I've seen him take from one guy, but it was really good.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, hey, Matt, there's one other thing, and I think about this all the time, but I can't remember what season it was, but when David Lindsay had that buck, I think it was called Goliath.
Oh,
yeah.
That was the most incredible footage that, it's just like the ultimate deer and all that. And what I can remember is when we first started filming those, I was coming up there and going with you guys. It would be like, there would be 100 during that season that killed a deer that would score over 170. Mm-hmm. And everybody would be like, wow, is that? And then the next year it was 3 hunters or 3 bucks. And then the next year it was 4. And by that 10th season, we were kind of numb to 170-inch deer. I mean, everybody would seem like they were knocking down 170-inch deer.
Yeah, that I think David's was, so it was, we called it David versus Goliath because he had an encounter with that deer Goliath and didn't get him killed, and then he killed Baby G. That was actually the season before they ever appeared on Dream Season. I believe their first year on Dream Season was Dream Season Celebrity, that season with Tim Sylvia. They were partners with Tim. And I think the reason why you remember it that way, it was on Wildlife Obsession that we used that hunt that you're talking about. And David and Jeff, which obviously they're still, involved with Gamekeepers and BioLogic, Mossy Oak, and we're still good friends with them. And they just were unbelievable. The level of talent and just footage and show-stopping type moments that they brought to the table, and they're just class acts. But you're right, it just like, I feel like they brought everybody else's game up another level year after year after year, and the rest of the Dream Season cast really, I mean, they were all killing, like you said, some giants by the end of the tenure there of Dream Season. So it was just, the show got to a point where we felt like, what else can we do with it? We can't go anywhere else with it. And, and then, some of the team started departing and doing their own thing, and which, is fine. It always kind of happens throughout the year. So you get used to that part of it. But it was like, what, I think maybe it's time to just, put a pin in this one and start anew. And that's why we jumped into Critical Mass and tried something different there and stubbed our toe a little bit in season 1. But I think season 2 and beyond, we kind of got back. It's kind of got a Dream Season type of flair to it a little bit, where you're following along with people's seasons and seeing them jump state to state. And, I think people just resonate with wanting to dive into somebody's year and see how they did from start to finish. Not, it's just different from Bow Madness or, some of our other shows. It's like, okay, you get embedded with this cast and you kind of follow along with them for the full story. Yeah. But man, Dream Season, we had some fun years. I'll never forget Dream Season Celebrity, the kind of riff that Tim Sylvia and Aaron Lewis had together, and it was all fun and it was all tongue-in-cheek fun and games, but you had two personalities that were very aggressive personalities, would be a nice way to say it. And so they didn't back down from each other, but I secretly, I feel like they were, big fans of each other and friends of each other, but man, we got some really quality on-screen and off-screen comments and moments from that rivalry between those two guys. It was some good stuff.
So I think what it shows is when those guys started managing their properties and letting those younger deer walk, because all of a sudden 140-inch deer wasn't what was needed. And they were having to let those 140-inch deer walk so that it could turn into grow another year or two. And so I think it really shows that managing your property and food plots and being at selective harvest, how it helps. But another thing that I take away from that, no matter how big a deer everybody killed every year, Mark always killed the biggest. Not on that show, but Mark would always have some just giant. He there'd be a picture that would come out, and here's Mark with a 212.
Yeah, Mark's always on a different level.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, he's we always call him the mad scientist, and as you obviously know, and you guys talk a lot about food plots, and he gained a lot of his early knowledge there from Dr. Grant Woods, who was influential in the beginning stages of BioLogic, and there's just so much that Mark and Terry have learned from you guys through the years. And now, obviously in the last few years have kind of become their own, they've mastered it, so to speak. And they've helped, a whole nother group of people learn how to plant food plots and food plot architecture and things that they learned from you and from Grant. And they've really taken it and ran with it. And so
we've learned a lot from them. They are truly obsessed and go the extra yard. your dad's got a fire truck that he waters his food plots when there's droughts going on. Who else does that?
Psycho.
Another level.
No, he, it was a drought condition one year. He's driving down the highway and he sees a fire department selling this old water truck, tanker truck. And so he thought,
goes on.
To him, he was like, you know what, if I can buy this truck for a good price, it needed work, and he had the means to be able to buy it. And then that's a donation basically to the fire department to get something that they need. Sure. You know what I mean? It was kind of a win-win. And then he uses that truck just about every year. They seem to get into drought conditions, but one of the downfalls of that, he ciphers it out of his ponds. He ended up killing the fish in one of them because he had one year where the drought was so bad he had to take so much water out of it and it never bounced back. So he had to restock the ponds. But yeah, they take it to another level. There's no doubt about that.
I got a 55-gallon blue barrel with a spigot that I put on it. So that's going to be my solution this year. Put it in the back of the pickup.
Last year, we were worried about the drought, and we had planted those food plots in the river. And he's like, well, why don't you just go from the river and get a pump? And, and it was like, that's like 200 yards away from that one food plot. He didn't think twice about it. That's exactly what he would have done. We got lucky.
Whatever it takes.
It rained and we didn't need to do that. But he didn't think twice. He's like, yeah, you get a pump, you put it out there. You got, a couple hoses. You might need 200-300 feet.
Says the civil engineer.
Barges would have run aground in the Mississippi River. He would have had his food plot.
That's right. Yeah.
But the food plot is green.
Yeah. So, well, man, we love you. We appreciate you jumping on. Is there any parting shots that you want to leave us with?
No, I've enjoyed it. Your soundboard, it's
you boys not so much.
There, Matt. I'm glad to see how you've matured in life to a point.
Yeah, I just turned 40. Think about that. Still love dirt and turds.
Fart sounds.
Well, no, but I do want to say how much the Mossy Oak family appreciates and loves the Drury family. And there's just such great chemistry there, and there's such history there, rich history. But it's just remarkable, and we have so much appreciation for what you guys do for our brands, and we just can't thank you enough because it's genuine and authentic. You guys are the real deal.
We love you guys, and it goes both ways. And it may be you, and you say yay or nay, thumbs up or thumbs down on this. But can we talk about that little project we're working on for Bass Pro and Cabela's, or no?
Yeah, it's going to be a while before it hits the stores. It'll probably be I'm gonna say August. Right around August when they have their Bass Pro does their fall classic. But there will be a display with BioLogic and Drury Outdoors imagery, branding, promoting a few special products that ones that you guys like, that will be there available in the Bass Pro stores. Yes.
Yep. Our favorite blends. So that's coming, like you said, August, which not too far away, a couple months out. So keep an eye out for that. And we appreciate all the support throughout the years. You guys were the first to give us a chance to produce a television show. And boy, it's just gone like wildfire from there. So thank you. And anything you ever need from us, you know where we're at.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. Y'all are a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it. And if folks would like to hunt with Mark and Terry, still a chance to get your name in the hat to do that. So just go to DeerCast, go to the giveaway button, and put your name in. And we'll be drawing a name for that lucky hunt winner in late July.
And you'll be coming to hunt with us here in 2021. So good luck. And till next time.
Smell you later.
Get those food plots in. All right. Peace out.
DeerCast is giving you the chance to hunt with Mark and Terry Drury. Head over to DeerCast.com to enter.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Mossy Oak.